Hello and welcome to NoobAquatics. My name is Matthew, and we are happy to have you here today. So remember, if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you do so. Today's video is all about the Pelvicachromis taeniatus. Now, this fish is one that we hold near and dear to our heart because we just love the colors. These fish are beautiful all around, and they are related to the Pelvicachromis kribensis, but they are much smaller. So the average size of these fish, the males can get to about 3 inches. Some may be able to get to 4, but the average from what we've seen is about 3 inches for the male and up to a max of 2 inches for the female. And this puts them into the dwarf, cichlid category. Now these are African cichlids. The pair that we currently have is from the Idenau branch of West Africa. Now this one here is a more rarely imported, one from this location there in West Africa. So they're really hard to get from this location, and I'm not really sure why. From the research that I found is that they just don't pull a lot of fish out of this location due to uh, over harvesting of the area. So we were really lucky to get a wild caught pair of these, and in fact, a really beautiful wild caught pair of these taeniatus. And we wanted to make sure that we brought you this spotlight so you can learn a bit about these fish. In my opinion, the Pelvicachromis is one of those underrated fish out there, and sometimes underappreciated. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because they're so easy to breed, and when they do, a lot of the eggs are viable. But in the fish keeping world, that is something you want if you're breeding fish, right? But even then, they are wonderful to have around. They're beautiful fish. They sift the sand and they get all those particulates out of the sand for you. So some of the things you'll learn in this is that you need to have a sand substrate. That's because they do like to, dig into sand and sift that sand around in their mouth, and it comes out their gills. And they're looking for any little bitty crustaceans or any type of food particles that are left over. So any of that food that falls down that doesn't get eaten, a lot of times these Pelvicachromis taeniatus will sift the sand and get that out of there. So if you don't see them eating the food dropping down, just know that they're probably going to get it in the sand when they sift it. So that's always a good thing as well. With these taeniatus, the Pelvicachromis taeniatus, Idenaus, or any of the taeniatus out there, if you get a wild caught pair, you're going to realize that they'll pretty much eat anything. But in the beginning, they're going to want live foods, mainly because that's what they're used to in the wild. So you can prime them with live foods, and slowly, as you're feeding live foods, throw in some dry foods and dry foods in there like pellets and stuff, and they will get used to the live foods and the pellets at the same time, and they will know that that is okay to eat. And it takes some time. It took us about a month to get them, used to pellet and flake food, and now they eat it like crazy. They love it. So it is possible with a little bit of love and a little bit of patience. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into the difference between the male and the female. So, so as you can see right here in the image, this one here is the male. Now there are some distinct differences in this fish compared to the female. The male, they will exhibit a lot more spots on the top half of their tail. All right, and then at the bottom, of course, you're going to get that separation. So it's going to look like a split flag where the top and the bottom are kind of different from each other. The top is normally spotted or a solid color, and the bottom is kind of that up and down vertical, stripe pattern. And as you see here, it's got the pink stripe pattern in the tail, and it's got the orange leopard looking spots on the top. Now, another thing you're going to notice on the male is that the male's belly is mostly going to be yellow or kind of a darkish color, but it'll be one solid color around the belly, so that's going to be pretty common there. So, and then another thing you'll see is that if you have a male and a female in the same tank, you'll notice that the males are much larger in size. So yeah, so what you'll notice with the males is that the males are going to be much larger than the females. So those are going to be your two indicators. First, you're going to look at the size of them, and then the tails. Now, at about, I would say, 2.5 months, you can start noticing the differences in the males and the females. But here, the main thing on the males, you're going to notice there's a lot more spots on the top half of the tail. The belly is going to be one solid color, and it's normally going to be a yellow or a white with some of these particular variants in this color. And then, of course, like I said, that's how you're going to be able to tell the difference. So now let's get on to what the difference is in the female. So as you'll see here in the female is a lot different. So they're going to have more of a solid color. They're not going to have that multicolor like the male had in the previous picture. If you look directly at her belly and her tail right there that you're going to see, her belly is a solid purple. Now with this particular, variant that's pulled from Idenau, you're going to get that purple belly. But a lot of times you're going to see that belly as a pinkish or reddish color, and that's what you're going to notice more often in the females for the Pelvicachromis taeniatus. Now, the reason why we like this one so much is because of the purple belly. That's one of the colors that I really like. I like purple. Now, when they are babies and they are growing up at about that 2.5 months time, you're going to see more of a pinkish red color in the belly. And that will show really easy. So that'll be the easiest way to tell the difference in sex in the juveniles. Now, another thing you'll notice here on this female is that this female doesn't have hardly any spots in her tail. It's mostly a solid color with no separation. And that's going to be pretty common in the females as well. So those are going to be the areas where you determine the difference in sex. And they are much smaller in size. So yeah, so this is the Pelvicachromis taeniatus female. Now again, the variants and colors will be a little different in both the males and the female, but this is kind of what you're going to be looking for. So yeah, so that was the difference in males and females. Now let's get into what they do inside the tank and get into a little bit more with some videos that we pieced together here over a few weeks of these beautiful dwarf African cichlids. So yeah, the Pelvicachromis taeniatus. This is a dwarf African cichlid. This one right here you see right here is the male, and the female is right here. They are cave spawners. All right, right now this tank is full of babies. All right, they've been in here for about 2 months with mom and dad. And at the moment, you'll see down here, she is protecting the cave. That's because they went in and they spawned again. So now there's more eggs in that little underground burrito they have there. And the mom is chasing the babies away. All right. But the babies are old enough to take care of themselves. They know that. So they are now no longer worried about them. The male, beautiful male here, he's got the spotted stripes on his tail with the bottom half being a completely different color. Exhibits the colors of yellow, purple, pink, blue. I mean, this guy just has all sorts of colors of the rainbow. The female, on the other hand, as you can see right now, she is in breeding protective mode. She has a copper sheen on her, dorsal fin and her tail. She doesn't have any spots on her tail. All right. She is extremely dark in color, and her belly turns almost a dark, eggplant purple. And they both have, if you look on the male here, you'll see right on his face, they both have the blue sheen right there. And you'll see on her, she has it as well. Now these guys, they love water that is highly planted, and they like shade. So as you'll see up here, the entire top of the tank is covered in duckweed. We don't have a lot of tanks that are covered like that. This is one of them that we like because they like the shaded areas, so we want to see them a lot more. These guys are really pretty, and like I said, they are misunderstood. A lot of people don't buy them because they think of African cichlids being extremely aggressive. Well, these guys, they're not as aggressive. Now, the female itself, the female can be pretty aggressive when she's in breeding mode, but overall, they're not really that aggressive. They are a moderately peaceful dwarf cichlid. If you have a big enough tank, they can technically be kept in a community aquarium. The pH in this tank is around 7.0. They like temperatures around 78, so just about the same as, most tropical fish aquariums. They like plants. Whenever they do breed, they have anywhere from 20 to 200 eggs that they lay, and depending on the quality of your water will depend on exactly how many survive. And as you can see in here, there's about 90 of them in here, maybe more. All right. And they are a great fish. Whenever they are out here, whenever the male and the female are out here taking care of the fry, they are twitching their bodies to them, which I'll put a video right after this to show you what the twitch looks like. It's hard to see, but if you look, you can see them twitching. That twitching right there, that's a signal to their babies, telling them that, to move over here, or the area is safe, start looking for food here. It's pretty neat. So if we look down there, you'll see all the babies, right? Well, that twitching tells them where to go. Both the male and the female do the twitching. It's really cool. All right, and they're basically telling them where to go. By twitching their body, they're saying, hey, come over here because there's food over here, try over here. The female does the same thing, all right, and they are very protective of their fry. So they chase away. You'll see we have only 2 fish in here with them. These right here, these are otocinclus catfish. They are constantly telling those catfish to get away. And it gives them something to do so that they can protect their fish, their babies, from something. But yeah, very beautiful fish. And as they get older, like I said, whenever they're babies, of course, the eggs are going to be impossible to get pictures of because of the type of, enclosures that we keep them in. But they are very similar on egg laying as they are Apistogrammas. So you know how the Apistogrammas go in there and they lay their eggs on the ceiling, and then the male comes in there and spreads his milk all over the thing, and then the eggs get fertilized. Very similar processes then. The babies. All right, as you can see here, the babies don't have much color in them. These babies here are just about 2 months old. All right, so they are now at an age where we can start selling them if we want. Now, it is impossible at this age to tell the sex. So let's go take a look at another group of babies that we have gotten from this exact wild-caught parents, and let's show you what they look like at about 3.5 months old. All right, so over here we have some babies that are roughly about 3.5 months old. They are now starting to color up. You can see we got a male right there. They're showing their spots on their tails. Right here in the front, this one right here is a male. The easiest way to tell is that they'll start getting the multiple spots on the top rear of the tail. You'll see one right there. You see the spots on the tail forming. This one right here with the purple belly. Pink belly is a female. So we can start seeing that they are starting to color up, and we can start distributing them out, or at least not really distributing them out, but we can start distinguishing the difference between male and female once they are at this point of 3.5 months. Now we have some other ones. This is our second batch right here. Let's take a look at the fish that are about 4.5 months old. So as you'll see here in the front, these guys are 4.5 months old. They have grown exceptionally in size, almost 5 months. All right. This is a male and a female right there. All right, and you can see they look very similar to mom and dad, but the colors are a little different. So these are tank raised specimens, so their colors are a little bit more prominent. They shine out a little bit more. You can see the male's colors are a little bit more vibrant. The female actually has spots, so you'll see on the top fin. This female has a spot on the top, the dorsal fin, and a spot on the tail. The male here has 2 spots on his tail, 2 giant spots, and is just beautiful in color. All right, so this is what they look like when they're about almost 5 months old. So look at the difference here. This one right here, these are 3.5 months old. All right, and in 2 more months, they will all look like this big. All right, now there are a total of 5 in this tank. This was the very first batch that we had. These are the ones that grew up in quarantine, which is amazing that even 5 of them survived and all that medicine. All right, but they live in a highly planted tank with lots of places to hide. All right, we have the cory cats in there to kind of help keep them under check with the eggs, and the other fish in there to keep them on check. That way they're not breeding in here and creating more babies for us that we can't take care of. But yeah, beautiful fish, the Pelvicachromis taeniatus. And now this one here is a rarely imported one. This particular one here is imported from the Idenau branch of West Africa. You don't see this one very often. There's a lot of variants out there, such as like the Nigerian red. You have the Lonki. I don't even know how you say that. There's a ton of them out there, and every one of them has slight variations in color and stuff like that. This one here, as you can see, is exhibiting a lot of yellow in his belly. So these are really pretty. These ones that are tank raised here. I'm assuming that these are going to be even prettier because there's a lot more to look at. But yeah, great looking specimens, great looking fish, and wonderful fish if you're trying to start breeding. These are so easy to breed. You just put a male and a female in there that are young like this. You'll see they have to be young, and when they're young like this, the female will come up and start darkening up and start twitching her body to the male and saying that, hey, I'm ready to breed. So very similar to how the males, and females and the Epistogrammas do the same thing. These guys do very similar, techniques of, telling each other how that they are ready to breed. But yeah, beautiful fish. Let's learn a little bit more about them. So in my opinion, I believe that this fish is one of the more underrated fish. A lot of people out there, they see these and they think African cichlid and they think, high pH. I can't take care of that. I can't have a beautiful planted aquarium, but these fish are the exception to that, and that's why we like them so much. Now we keep them in a dark substrate, but the colors will be completely different if they are on a light substrate. The belly of the male here will be way more yellow, in a darker substrate. The female will lighten up too, but the purples around her belly will still be extremely, extremely dark. And the babies, they love the camera because they think they're getting fed. But yeah, we really love these fish. They are beautiful. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to have a pair of these in their tank, or even a group of males, or a group of males in their community tank. So out of these two species, or out of these two sexes here, the female is technically the more aggressive one. So I would say you'd want to give the females at least 30 gallons each. So if you have a 60+ gallon tank, you can probably have two females in there and they can develop their own territories on the left and the right. If you have only males, you can probably have a lot more in there, as they will be a lot more calm towards each other without the female to compete with. So I would say give the males anywhere from 20 to 30 gallons each as well. So that would be my recommendation based on keeping these. But as you can see here, yeah, they are beautiful. The stripes, as I mentioned earlier, that go up and down there on the tail are pink. I love the leopard spots on the tail in the back at the top. He has those great colors on the bottom. He has the pinkish purple in his anal fin, and he has pretty much blue, yellow, orange, red, and purple, all of that in his dorsal fin. So yeah, beautiful fish, very friendly. They love planted tanks, and we enjoy having them. They can produce anywhere between 30 to 120 or more eggs at any given time. Now that doesn't guarantee that they're all going to hatch, but as you can see in this tank here, we had close to a full hatch. So this was probably roughly about 100 115 eggs that actually hatched in here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they did have eggs down in the bottom, but because of all these babies here, the eggs did get eaten, which we are fine with that because of how many babies they have. So hopefully they will hold off again until we can get them in the grow out tank. But yeah, beautiful fish, and we love them. So let's get into some of the more details. So the water parameters that they need to be kept in, the age, how old they are, that type of thing. Let's get into those details. Excellent. So yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed the video footage of our beautiful a beautiful pair of Pelvicachromis taeniatus. And by the way, their names are Bonnie and Clyde. Why? Well, just because we just wanted to name them Bonnie and Clyde. So the male, of course, is Clyde, and the female is Bonnie. But yeah, so that's who you just got introduced to, was our beautiful pair of Idenau taeniatus. Now, these fish, they are very hardy. They are very easy to take care of. Um, the water parameters, they're not very picky, but you'll want to make sure you keep the pH somewhere between 6 and 7. We prefer to keep ours right at around 7 for most of our fish. There are some that we drop it down to about 6.2, but only if we are trying to specifically reach a target pH. But for the most part, on average, we keep our pH right around 7.0. And we do that for most of our freshwater tanks, and you can't go wrong there. Pretty much all fish will be able to thrive in a freshwater aquarium in that pH. But again, there are some that, like wild caught, that need to live in a lower pH, but it doesn't mean you can't transition them slowly into a different one. Any transitions you do with wild caught fish need to be done slowly over time so that they can get used to the changes. Now with these wild caught, when we got them, we kept them in a pH of 6.2 because what I was told is that that's the water pH that they were pulled from. And then over the period of a 2-month period, I raised the pH to 7.0, and they are doing perfectly fine. And they are breeding in that 7.0 just fine. So I think, in my personal opinion, I think a lot of the breeding, is done based on the comfortability that the fish feels in the environment they live in. And then, of course, the eggs are able to hatch easily if there is not a high abundance of calcium in the water that hardens the shell. So fish are, just think of it, these fish are babies are teeny tiny. If they are trying to break out of a concrete shell, it's going to be difficult for them to hatch. So having a lower concentration of calcium, or even just a hardness, your hardness being a little bit lower while they are, breeding and having the eggs, could be very beneficial in your hatch rate. Now, temperature wise, we keep ours right at about 78 degrees. All right. Yep, 78 degrees. But they can be kept as low as 70 all the way up to about 80. But I recommend somewhere in between 76 and 78 and keep it stable right around that temperature for them to be the most comfortable and show the best colors. Now, the substrate, you can use either black or you can use a light color substrate. If you want to see more of the brighter light colors, then you'll want to use those tans and browns and white substrates there. If you want to see the dark colors like we like in our fish, then you're going to want a darker, substrate color. Now, if you want to mix it up and you have both, you may see that the fish goes in between the dark and the light, and you may get a beautiful color out of it. But no matter what substrate you have, these are beautiful fish in color, as you saw in the pictures previously. Now for hardness and alkaline, so that really is the KH values. You want to have those somewhere between 2 and 4, and that just stabilizes your pH, so you don't have to try to chase it around. With hardness, they can live in as low as 2 hardness all the way up to, from what I've been told, up to 15. Now we don't keep any of our fish in hardness levels that high, so I would recommend somewhere around maybe 2 to an 8 hardness on the levels there. Any harder than that, then the eggs may have a much harder time hatching. So yeah, so keep it right around that in the hardness levels for the GH. Now, as I mentioned previously in one of the video inserts there, that if you are planning to breed these fish, then I recommend you have a breeding only tank or a species only tank for that pair, like we do here in the 20-gallon. If you are going to just put them into a community tank, you may be better off getting a bunch of males instead of females, as they will be a little bit more calm towards each other if there's no females in there for them to compete over. If you are going to have a group of males in there with 1 female or 2 females, and as I mentioned, you want to have at least 30 gallons of space for each female and at least 20 plus gallons of space for each male. That's what's recommended in that there, and that's what I recommend here, because they are going to have territorial disputes in there. Now, if you get a large group of them and let them, grow up and naturally pair off, once they pair off, you can start moving those pairs into their, respective tanks, or you can separate them out into male and female. Now, keep in mind, the females are going to still be kind of aggressive with each other, even if the males aren't present. And that's what we've noticed. Those females can get pretty mean. So making sure you have enough room for each female is pretty important. When it comes to feeding, we feed ours white worms. We feed ours frozen bloodworms. Now, you want to kind of limit the amount of bloodworms they have because it is very high in, in iron and protein and stuff, and can block their system. So don't feed it more than maybe once a week or once every other week. You can limit that in there, but we do feed them also other types of frozen food like Daphnia and tubifex worms. So they do like the frozen and the live a lot better, but they also do eat cichlid pellets. Now we specifically choose to feed our cichlid pellets from Ken's fish and from North Fin. Now the North Fin is a little bit more expensive, so we don't like buy a small package. We buy a larger package and we mix it in with the fish from Ken's because North Fin is a little unique. They add in stuff like they add in lots of veggies and algae and spirulina that a lot of other companies don't do, but they also put in some. So Northfin also adds in something called um, Montmorillonite clay or Monty clay. I'll put the name up here so that you can see it. But yeah, so they put in that clay, and now that clay has lots, just like spirulina has lots of minerals in there that the fish can use. It helps to also, weird enough, when they excrete this or poop this out, the Monty clay, weird enough, can also help stabilize your pH. So it has two benefits there. Another thing that it does, or another thing that it says that it does, is that it also helps to promote the growth of your beneficial bacteria, as well as bind to heavy metal ions and toxins in the water. So that's one of the cool parts there, and the fish are consuming this, so it would bind to those heavy metal toxins in your fish. So in essence, the reason the reason why they're adding it in there is because they only see a benefit to it, and we want to make sure our fish get that benefit. So we feed them a mixture of the Ken's fish cichlid pellets and the North Fin veggie pellets. So we mix those in there because Pelvicachromis taeniatus, even though they do like the live foods and stuff like that, they tend to, prefer more of a vegetable, or should I say, a plant type diet. Now, we haven't seen them eating any of our live plants or anything like that. Uh, so that's not anything that you would normally have to worry about, but they do dig, so there's a chance that they could uproot a plant every now and then, but it's very uncommon. So these are some beautiful fish. And again, we wanted to make sure we brought this spotlight to you so you'd be aware of this fish. And again, it's an underrated fish and underappreciated. People, in my opinion, these are dwarf cichlids, just like apistogrammas. These things should be highly sought after. Yes, there's a lot of them out there, but look for those color variants. So like the Idenau color variant. They have another one out there called Kinky, I believe is what it is. And then they have the Nigerian red, Nigerian green. There's a Moliwi and Lukunji. I mean, there's so many different variants out there of where they are harvested from over in West Africa that you're going to get different colors in these fish. So there's many different to choose from. Now they all look very similar, just like apistogrammas look very similar, but these fish are a lot easier to breed than apistogrammas. They don't require a lot of time in the breeding process, as long as they have a cave to spawn in or some hiding place that they can turn over on, just like an apistogramma. These things are a great beginner fish if you're looking to breed them and start, selling fish for profit. Uh, we've learned that if you do breed them and you move the fish over into a new tank to grow out, then the parents are going to breed again. And the good part is the parents will limit their breeding if that tank is full of babies. And we've noticed that with our last batch that's in there with them. We've had them in there now going on almost, over 2 months. And the parents, they tried to breed, but again, because of all the babies, they chose not to keep the eggs. And now they're just directing the babies around the tank. So they're continuing to do their parental duties even after 2 months, which is amazing to see. So these are some very, very protective fish. They guard their babies left and right, looking for problems. So these are wonderful fish to watch. Well, again, these are the Pelvicachromis taeniatus. We specifically have the Idenau. If you'd like to purchase some, we do have some on Vivi.com. You can just look for our NoobAquatics store. We have that link down below in the description. We don't really sell them for a lot, even though they are a rare import. Because we are a beginner channel here, we try to keep our fish as cheap as possible for everybody out there to get into the hobby. Well, again, thank you so much for coming to NoobAquatics. If you love the video, remember to subscribe, remember to like, and remember to hit that notification bell, because everything helps and it makes it sure that our videos will get out there and people can see them. And we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you again to all of our current subscribers. We hope and plan to bring you more videos here in the future. Again, welcome to NoobAquatics if you're here for the first time, and thank you so much for coming back. And we hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful fishy day.